I went in there wide awake, and it was really scary. I still remember like everything to this day, like the feeling of the cold operating table, like how bright the operating room lights were, and just the feeling of the procedure being done. Because I mean, they gave me local anesthesia, but that doesn't completely numb you. So it was like the most painful procedure I've ever had done. Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm 24 years old. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, but I am a newlywed living in Vermont now. And I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in August of 2019. It was extremely hard and difficult, but it taught me so much, and it made me so much stronger, and just taught me, so many different things about life, and really put a lot of things into perspective. Everything started in the summer of 2019, right after I graduated high school. I was heavily involved in my church's summer camps and foster camps. So I was very busy doing all of that. And right after the last camp, when I came home, I started developing a dry cough. And I was like, I've been around a lot of people this summer. I'm sure I just picked up some sickness from, a person. And so I kind of brushed it aside, but that cough lasted for several weeks. I tried, cough syrup, breathing treatments, and nothing was really working. And then one day it just kind of like randomly went away on its own. But then other symptoms started developing. I was extremely tired. I would take multiple naps in a day, which was just not normal for me. I remember I would get so out of breath just walking up the stairs. And I was an athlete in high school. I played varsity volleyball and I played club volleyball. So I was always working out and I was never out of shape. So I was like, maybe I'm just out of shape because I just stopped working out. So again, kind of brushed that aside, even though it was not normal. And then I started noticing anytime I was like washing my hair in the shower or doing my hair in the morning, my left arm would swell, get super tired, and it would turn like a bluish purple color, like the circulation was being cut off, which was very strange. So that's when I kind of really started to get worried. And then lastly, what finally led me to go to the doctor was I found a lump under my arm when I was doing my hair one day. So I went to my pediatrician that I'd seen my whole life, and I was kind of going like back and forth to the same office for a couple weeks. First time I got a tuberculosis test. Second time, that came back negative. I got a ton of blood drawn, like 8 vials of blood drawn. And that came back and nothing was like super abnormal. I remember there was one level that was abnormal, but they, for some reason, kind of like brushed that aside. And then finally, the last time I went in, I had my heart checked, and my pediatrician found a heart murmur that she had never heard on me my whole life. So she referred me to the cardiologist. And I remember we kind of like took a detour home first because we had to pick up my brother from school. And I just remember kind of having a gut feeling when we stopped home. I was like, I just have a feeling I'm not going to be coming back home for a while when we go. So my intuition kind of told me like pack a bag. So I packed up my headphones and I packed up my Bible and a few other things. I was just like, I was super strong in my faith. I had just gotten back from, all those camps for my church. And that was like the first thing I grabbed for whatever reason. So I packed that bag. We headed to the cardiologist. There I had an echo and an EKG done. And the cardiologist came in and told me, they were like, so we found something, but it's beyond kind of what our machines can see. So we are going to refer you to the emergency room. We already called and they're expecting you. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, this is serious. Like, there has not been a simple solution yet. Whatever's going on, like, they have a sense of urgency to get me over there. So that's when me and my mom were kind of like, okay, we're getting a little anxious here. So went over to the emergency room and had a chest x-ray and then a CT scan with contrast done. and we got kind of into the evening at this point. So they had called the oncologist from the other location in Dallas. I was at Children's in Plano, and they called the oncologist from Children's Dallas, the bigger hospital, and I guess told him to come to this location. So the oncologist shows up. He walks into my room where I was in the emergency room, and he pulls up a chair and sits at the foot of my hospital bed and looks me in the eye and is like, "We found a tumor in your chest, and we're almost certain it's lymphoma." Right after he said that, he was like, you can't go home. We're gonna transfer you via ambulance to our bigger location in Dallas. You'll spend the night there, and we're gonna start testing like the next day. So I rode in an ambulance to the Dallas location, and everything kind of like hit me that night. But I was like, we just got to do this. Like there's no other option. We have to get through this. So the next day or a few days leading up to that, I started getting testing done. I had a full body PET scan to confirm if it had spread anywhere else. I also had a spinal tab to see if it had spread to my spinal fluid. And then I went in for my biggest procedure, which was the biopsy, and they were going to insert a PICC line in that same procedure. And essentially, they told me my tumor was so big in my chest, it was covering the whole entire left side of my lung, and my heart was like squished, basically. So they told me I had been like desaturating in my sleep, and they were like, "We do not feel comfortable putting you under anesthesia and compressing any of your airways because we don't know what would happen." So they were like, "You're gonna have to go into this, wide awake, no anesthesia or anything." They weren't even comfortable giving me like any anxiety medicine to like calm me down a little bit. So I went in there wide awake, and it was really scary. I still remember like everything to this day, like the feeling of the cold operating table, like how bright the operating room lights were, and just the feeling of the procedure being done, because I mean, they gave me local anesthesia, but that doesn't completely numb you. So it was like the most painful procedure I've ever had done. And thankfully, I was at the children's hospital. So one of the nurses was like, "Hey, we're going to let you listen to music since you're going to be awake. Like, is there anything you would want to listen to?" And like immediately I was like, "Worship music, please put on a worship playlist." And the night before, when I was in the emergency room, I was listening to music because I packed my headphones, and I had this song "Raise a Hallelujah" by Bethel on repeat, because it was just really speaking to me. And one of the lyrics is, "I'm going to sing in the middle of the storm." And so I had that song on repeat the day before, and I asked her to play a worship playlist, and the first song that came on in the operating room was that same song that I had on repeat the day before. So I just knew that like God was with me in that operating room, and I knew I wasn't alone, and that gave me such a sense of comfort and strength to get through the hardest procedure and the most painful thing I've ever been through. So yeah, I had that procedure done. And a few days later, all those results came back. Thankfully, it had not spread to my spinal fluid. That came back clear. The PET scan confirmed that it was localized to my chest, which I was so thankful for. But I also was like kind of shocked because my tumor was so big and it had been progressing for several months. So I was very grateful for that. And then the biopsy confirmed that it was a rare subtype of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma called primary mediastinal large B-cell lymphoma, and it accounts, I think, for about 2% of non-Hodgkin's lymphomas. When the doctor first told me, I was kind of numb to everything, to the whole thing. My first reaction was almost to laugh. Like I almost remember laughing because I was like, "Yeah, right. I'm 18 years old. I am in the best shape of my life because I've been an athlete for the past 4 years. I eat healthy. I take care of myself. Like how is this possible, you know?" Um so that was my first reaction. I was numb. My family was sitting next to me, and they were all, crying and emotional, and I just was in shock. I felt my body go into fight or flight mode. And yeah, that was kind of my initial reaction. Shortly after we had the official diagnosis. They already had a treatment plan ready to go. They were ready to start this thing. And I decided to do the chemo regimen. I was set to do 6 rounds over a span of 6 months. And I would go in every 2 weeks. So I would have a week, I would stay in the hospital inpatient for a week and have that chemo round done. And then I'd go home for about 2 weeks. So my counts had time to recover. I had time to recover, and then I would go back in. The first round I had was a very low dose, so I didn't experience a ton of side effects the first time. I just remember being very tired. And then about 2 weeks or a week on the dot from when I finished, my hair started falling out. And that was like the biggest, it's one of like the biggest side effects that everyone experiences. So my hair started falling out, and I kind of let it shed for like a couple of days. And then I decided, I was like, I'm going to take control of this. And so my dad ended up shaving my head for me. And yeah, I was rocking the bald head from then on. And then I went in for my second round, and they adjusted the dose until they got my counts low enough to where they wanted them to be, because that's like the most aggressive my body could handle, essentially. So after I had like third round, I would say, or no, second round, some of the side effects I was experiencing, again, just like super tired. The first couple days after the hospital, I'd always feel like I had the flu, essentially. I remember the weirdest side effect I had is I felt like every single inch of my body was sore as soon as I came home, like the next day to wake up. It felt like I worked out every inch of my body, and I was just sore, and that lasted for a couple of days. Sometimes I'd have headaches. Thankfully, I didn't have a ton of nausea every round, because I would stay on top of my nausea medicine when I was in the hospital, and then afterwards they had some medicine they gave me, and I always stayed on top of that because I did not want to get nauseous. Towards the end, I like every round my mouth sores would get worse and worse, and that was super painful. So I dealt with that, and yeah, I'd say mostly just the fatigue and just feeling like I had the flu every single time. And your body kind of like gets beat up a little bit more after every round. So towards the end, like you may feel better for like a day, and then you have to go in for your next round. And so every round, yeah, your body just gets more and more beat up. When I got home from my first round of chemo, I like walked back into my room, and I kind of like had a breakdown, because I realized how different my life was from the last time I stepped into my room. And like I was 18 years old, and when you're forced to face your mortality at such a young age, it like changes you. And I think you realize a lot of things that people may realize later in their life. Um, so when I came home after that first round, everything kind of hit me like, wow, my life is so different. I'm not going to go off to college like I originally thought. I'm going to be really sick for these next few months. And everything just kind of like hit me that first time I came home. And I remember kind of having a moment where I was like, why did this have to happen to me? Like, I had so many other plans. Like, I had a plan set for my life, and this is not the way I saw it going. And I remember going to bed that night and waking up the next morning. And for whatever reason, I kind of had a shift in my mindset, and I was like, why not me? I can't control my situation. So how can I turn this into something good and help other people? And that's when I remembered my YouTube channel that I had kind of stopped posting on from high school. I loved doing social media and stuff in high school. And I was like, I'm going to be really bored because I can't go out and see people. So why not make a YouTube video, post it online, and share my story and potentially help other people out there? Because that's something I was searching for. I was so young, and I had heard that, it's not common for young adults to get diagnosed with cancer, which I have learned now that is so far from the truth, because there are so many young adults with cancer. And that stigma needs to be gone. So I turned on my camera and I shared my cancer diagnosis story. And from that point on, I was sharing, videos from in the hospital for my chemo rounds. I was sharing how I did my makeup because I didn't have any eyebrows or eyelashes. I was sharing how I styled my wigs and my headscarves. And slowly over time, I grew a really strong community of cancer patients and survivors, and I was able to help other people. And that was such a rewarding part of my cancer journey because it felt like I wasn't going through all of that for nothing. It felt like I had a community and that I was helping other people. So that's something that I always looked forward to during and that kind of like kept me motivated and passionate when I was going through that really, really hard journey. So yeah, I kind of documented all of those 6 rounds of chemo, and thankfully I had a pretty straightforward treatment. I wasn't delayed at all. My counts were able to recover, so I had pretty much 6 months on the dot chemo treatment. And after my last round, I was able to ring the bell and celebrate that.
Our patients have the cutest SMILEs. Our patients have the sweetest HEARTs. Oh, we love to see you every day, but now it's time we get to say, pack your bags, get out the door, you don't get chemo anymore.
Congratulations.
A few months after chemo ended, I went in for my post-treatment PET scan to officially confirm if I was NED, in remission, and cancer-free. And thankfully, that PET scan showed that that treatment was successful. I was in remission, and so we officially celebrated that. And that kind of started my survivorship journey. And now I'm here, and this year will be 6 years cancer free, which is amazing. One thing I realized after treatment was how much life there still is to live after chemo. And I think when you're, in the middle of chemo and your body feels so beaten up and you feel like a shell of yourself, when you don't recognize yourself when you look in the mirror because you don't have hair, you don't have eyelashes or anything, it puts you in like a really negative headspace sometimes where you're like, this feels so permanent. Like, I don't know if I'll ever feel the same again or if I'll ever be able to live life normally again. And 6 years out from everything, like there are still times where I'm triggered by something and I get like bad health anxiety for a day or two. But like going through college and graduating and meeting my amazing friends and just all of the life experiences that have happened within the first 6 years of remission have taught me so much about like how much life there truly is to live after cancer. And I think if I could have told myself that when I was in the depths of cancer treatment and I was really struggling, like, Lauren, if you could only see like how much hope and like joy is that it's going to come, like you would feel so much better. So yeah, that's like the one thing that I wish I could go back and tell myself was there's still so much life to live. The most challenging thing was that feeling of the safety net being lifted, like the safety net of constantly being monitored by doctors and, having a schedule of going in for chemo. Like you knew you were getting the medicine and you knew it was working. So you had really nothing to worry about. There was no risk of it coming back yet. And as soon as your treatment is done, your doctor's like, okay, like see you in 3 months. Have a good life. Like enjoy survivorship. And it's like, that's not the reality. Like you're hit with so much anxiety and like your body has been in fight or flight mode for the past 6 months, just trying to survive and get healthy again, that it's like you have to process everything that you just went through. And that is one of the most challenging things. The other challenging thing is dealing with the long-term side effects. So every 2 years, I go in for an echocardiogram to check my heart because I'm at a higher risk to developing heart disease and heart issues from one of the chemos I received. And another one of the biggest long-term side effects for me has been fertility, because I didn't have enough time to freeze my eggs in between, like the time they found out and the time I started treatment, because my cancer was so aggressive. They had to start right away. So I knew that fertility was going to be one of my main concerns. And so I get my fertility checked every year as well. And I'm monitoring that and seeing where I'm at, if I need to take any, measures to preserve my fertility. But that's also something I've struggled with, just the thought of like, my body is never going to be the way it would have been if I never had cancer, like kind of having to deal with the fact that it's changed my body for the rest of my life and accepting that. And I will say, like, 6 years, I have accepted that. Like, I know that my body is not going to operate the same as it would have, and I know that I'm going to have to take extra precautions to monitor things, and that's just something that I've had to accept, but it hasn't been easy, and it's been really hard. The doctors told me that the medicine would affect my fertility because it ages your ovaries quicker than like how you age. So like my ovaries will be older than I am, which means that my fertility window may be shorter than the average woman. So I go in and I just get blood work done yearly to check my hormone level, to see where my egg, I don't know what, like egg health, I don't know what they call it. Yeah, I'm just monitored yearly through blood work to see where my ovaries are at. And the first doctor I went to, I didn't have the best experience. I had my level tested and it was a little low because it was closer to when I finished treatment. And the doctor was basically like, so here are your options. We can do egg freezing, we can do embryo freezing. And I didn't really feel like he listened to me. And so I didn't have the best experience with that. I felt like just another patient, just another number sort of thing. Didn't really feel like a human. And so that kind of like, I don't know what the word is. That kind of discouraged me a little bit, but then I was able to find a doctor that helped me. And the next time I got it tested, it was actually higher than it originally was. So we were really encouraged by that. And she was like, right now, I'm still 24. So if I wanted to try for kids now, I wouldn't have an issue. But, when I get closer to my 30s or whatever, I may have, more of an issue with that. So it's just something I have to monitor yearly, it's fine. So it's just what I got to do. A lot of insurances actually don't cover any sort of fertility treatment. And it's really, really expensive just for one round. And the average woman has to go through like 6 rounds of IVF to have a successful pregnancy. So I didn't feel at peace going through any sort of like egg freezing yet. And so, yeah, that's why I'm still monitoring it. My old self was very carefree and didn't really worry about a lot of things. And that's definitely not how I operate now. I'm definitely a more anxious person. And yeah, I just worry about more things now. And that is something that I've had to grieve for my old self. My message of hope would be that there is a bigger young adult cancer community than you think. So you are not the only one going through it. And I would, try to find a support group online. I had a support group of girls my age that were going through it, and it was so helpful to have somebody to talk to that knew what you were going through. And also know that like it is going to be the hardest thing you go through, but you're not going through it for nothing. So try to find something good from it or a purpose. Like I knew that I wanted to help other people and share my story, and like I don't ever want to go through that again, but so many things aligned afterwards. Like after treatment, I did go off to college and I found what I was passionate about. Before, when I graduated, I didn't know what I was going to major in. I didn't know what I was passionate about. But after, picking up social media again and sharing my cancer story, I knew exactly what I wanted to study. I knew I wanted to study marketing and public relations, and that has led me to my career today. So everything happens for a reason. And I think if you just hold on to that in the darkest seasons of your life, you will find little glimpses of hope.